Hello everyone, sorry. It looks like it switched over before I was ready for it. All right, let's get things sorted out here. This is Mark Holthe, Canadian immigration lawyer, ex-immigration officer, and former high school teacher. Oh, totally scrambling today. And I can see that I've got also a very, very bad shadow here behind me in my green screen. So it's one of those days, guys. It is completely one of those days. Let's see what we've got here. This is awesome. So Ralph says, oh no, no Mark. Hello, I am here, guys. Yes, and there's a bunch of people that were posting. I had to quickly run and take care of a few things, and then I thought I had more time, but I'm here. I'm here. All right. Now, one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust a little bit of my lighting on the fly here and see if we can clear it up just a little bit. It looks to me like it is not quite where I want it. Okay, hang tight, guys. I'm going to put you back to the intro for just a little bit longer. I'm going to get a few things set up here, and then we're going to come back live. So continue to post your comments. Let me know where you're listening from, and today's going to be an awesome live Q&A. A little bit of scrambling right now, but we'll get right to it. All right, guys, I am here. I am back. It has been, I gotta adjust my chair here. Wow, what a morning it has been. I think a lot of you guys, thanks for tuning in here. It looks like we've got a lot of people are getting a kick out of this crazy tumultuous live video today. Those who are watching this as a video, well, I could call out all of that information, but I'm not going to. This is real, this is me, this is how it is some days. When you're representing clients, when you're doing videos, and I have never, ever, ever worried too much about making things perfect. But the reality is sometimes things kind of fall apart, like at the start of this video. So I'm so grateful that you guys could all tune in. It's great to have you guys here. We've got representation from all over. Darshan, congratulations, my friend. Woo! That is awesome. An ITA, that is so cool. And you know what? I know there are a ton of people in Canada right now who are really benefiting from what's happening. And, you know, the provincial nominee program, we just had a draw just the other day. Understand, some people are a little bit confused about this. They're wondering, what is this PNP and how can I get involved with it? Well, the PNP draws are specifically limited to the PNP programs that have express entry streams. So I've got some clients who are in the paper-based process through Alberta, through Saskatchewan, and they're asking me, Mark, how can I get involved? How can I switch my application over? Well, you can't. You have to be actually drawn through one of the express entry streams in order to then be able to go forward and benefit from these expedited draws. But, you know, even the PNP only draws are kind of, well, you know, I guess right now they can't open it up to everyone. And because they're restricting the federal skilled worker applications for now while the travel restrictions are in place. But the reality is, as they move forward, they don't really have, at least at this stage, they haven't really indicated, well, sometimes they will issue a CEC and a PNP back to back. And that's kind of how they deal with it. So, but if it was open, all of these PNP people would actually be getting their ITAs regardless, because they've got 600 points just for that nomination alone. So excellent. Let's see who else we've got here. We've got Elsie's tuned in from Cameroon. Let's add this to our screen right here. So if I can get it to show up. There it is. All right, Elsie, great to have you. We've got Johnson, who's tuning in from Thailand, Bangkok. Awesome. And then those of you who are posting questions, hold off, because I'm going to skip past all the questions. We're just kind of doing a little check-in to see where everybody's tuning in from. And if you have questions, hold off, okay? All right, Sai, hi, good to see you too. Okay, so what's been going on? The question here is Canada still stopping people from coming in? The answer is yes, which is super, super frustrating for many, many people that I know. And one of the challenges that we face with all of this is that there's been a lot of misinformation sometimes that slips into the, you know, onto the website, into the, you know, giving people the impression that everything is all fine. And one of those situations that we've been dealing with lately is with family reunification, being able to have family come with you when you enter Canada, and whether or not you can even apply for temporary resident visas or electronic travel authorizations. And I want to share something with you guys. I'm not quite sure if I can make this work. I'm going to try. So bear with me. I haven't tested this in advance, so it may or may not work. But I have here, I want to share my screen with you. So I'm going to go to the web view. I'm going to, okay, that works. Hey, that didn't fall apart on me. That's positive. But what I'm going to do is, actually, I need to unlock that. And then I'm going to share a different window with you guys. The preview maybe. Is this it? Yes. Okay. This is what I wanted to share with you. So this right here is kind of big, and I need to shrink it down so that I can fit on the screen here. So this is just one of the responses that one of my colleagues had requested clarification on from immigration with respect to people traveling. And so there was this thought process when the Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, announced that, that they were going to ease the restrictions for family to make it easier for family members of Canadian citizens and permanent residents to travel to Canada. You can see here that they had given the impression that it was all open and they were going to start processing, but that is not the case. So you can see right here it says, and I can't really, maybe I can show it, the temporary suspension on processing of visitor visa applications for those not eligible to travel to Canada due to the travel restrictions remains in place. So people are thinking, oh, now I can move forward and I can submit these visitor visa applications. Well, the temporary suspension of processing for pure visitor purposes is still in place, and it applies to ETA applications that cannot be automatically processed. So in other words, if you have someone who maybe had some other issue with immigration and it wasn't just a snap perfect ETA approval, it had to go to another officer for review. Well, in those circumstances, that's one of the challenges that people are facing with now, is that they are confirming that that there is still a suspension for individuals who are applying through the regular stream to obviously come and visit to Canada. You can see here, we continue to process visitor visa applications as well as ETAs submitted online for those who can prove that they're eligible to travel. And so for those of you who are, you know, thinking, hey, this is great, it's all my problems are solved, I can I can connect and come to Canada, that's you know, you may still be very sadly disappointed. Okay, you can see here as well, we're also processing all study permit applications submitted online, as well as permanent resident applications to the extent possible. And what that means is that individual visa offices abroad may not have the staff members to actually do it. And so to the extent possible means that, well, you know, you can see no application in progress will be closed or refused as a result of, you know, the service disruptions. But understand that with all the steps, the biometrics, all of these things that are in place right now, it's a real burden for people because the travel restrictions are still alive and well for you guys. Okay, and it's disappointing. And why are they not opening it up? Like that's really what we're at right now, right? Why are they doing this? We'll drop Psy off of there, and that is the biggest question of all. There's a number of reasons for it. We're not out of the woods with COVID-19. We're not. And so the government is still taking a very, very strict approach. They want to make sure that we have control over our own affairs before we open it up. And it's cruel. It's heartless. It really is. But they take the preeminent purpose of protecting the Canadian citizens and the Canadian public over everything else. Now, lots of arguments are being made. Look, we can self-isolate. We can quarantine when we come. We can make sure that anyone who may be ill or otherwise doesn't even get on the plane. So those rules are still there. But it is what it is. And will Canada open up? You know, we are suspecting for sure, obviously, that this is going to continue through to the end of June. And we've had a lot of reports that it's even going to push through to July, which is really brutal. It's really terrible. So I understand all of you, especially those who have family that they want to be reunited with. I've got clients that are here as temporary residents in Canada who their family went back overseas to deal with an ill family member or an elderly parent that needed to be transitioned to a care facility. And now they're trapped. They can't come back because they don't fit within the Order in Council exemptions. The purpose of their entry cannot be determined as being non-optional or non-discretionary. And so when you're looking at these layers and layers of things that are preventing people from coming, it can be unbelievably frustrating. Now, one thing we do know is that if you're in the US and you're coming and you're separated from your Canadian spouse or permanent resident spouse, for instance, that there have been positive developments because of that. But there's still the expectation that if you're coming back, you're coming permanently. You know, you're coming for a stay that's longer than really 15 days, and that the 14-day quarantine period, you can fully abide by it. So these are more long-term entries. Some of the things that are still up in the air are, okay, if we're saying that, yeah, I'm going to come and stay longer in Canada as a visitor, as a family member of a Canadian citizen, what is immigration going to do? You guys know that you have to demonstrate temporary intent, right? And so if you're trying to demonstrate that I'm only coming for a short period of time and then I'm going back, well, that runs counter to really the orders in council and these exemptions, and trying to show that that you actually do intend to reunify with your spouse in Canada, which in its very essence implies that there's a more of a permanent intention. And so we've got this real situation where we're seeking information. It's one of the questions that we've got up for our next round of meetings next week with the immigration practitioner call that we have with immigration every 2 weeks. And so we'll see what happens, and hopefully I'll have a little bit more information for you guys next week. But I also know my audio is always doing this to you guys, isn't it? I'll try to crank that up just a little bit more. I know that it's not always perfect, and I'm gonna move my mic a little closer here so that you guys can hear me, because I think my audio was a little bit quieter. Anyways, I think we're back in shape here. I can pull this up to here even. Okay, there we go. That'll be better for audio. I know you guys have been patient, haven't saying, Mark, your audio is too low, but we're in business. Okay, so those of you who are posting questions, a couple things, like I said, I wanted to just identify for all of you that that you have to be very careful. You have to read things very careful. You can't assume that you can just jump on a plane. And we've even had experiences still, notwithstanding everything that's transpired, where the orders in council that allow people to get on a plane and that have exemptions for who's restricted from travel, but people who actually meet the exemptions for travel, the restrictions, and are able to fly, are sometimes being barred erroneously. They're being blocked, and then we have to provide the confirmations to the airlines, and we have to fight and show, look, no, you're wrong, and this CBSA liaison officer who's telling you one thing is just not correct. They're applying the wrong test. So I feel for you guys. I feel for families that are apart. It breaks my heart when I see people that haven't been able to see their children in months and months because they're separated, and that's the case with one of my clients. And so it's a real difficult time, and my heart goes out to all of you that are struggling with this. All right. Okay. So with that happening, I do want to mention a few things. Let's give a few more shout outs. Remember, what I want you to do is not post your questions, and I see a ton of people posting them, and I'm not going to get to those. Okay, there we go. We got a response that the sound is better. That's good. And I know sometimes it is quite low. Okay, I want to just let you guys know, one thing that happened yesterday to me, which has kind of set me back a little bit from work standpoint, that had to happen was, if you can believe it, was my 25th wedding anniversary. So can you imagine that? This immigration lawyer here, who I was going to put my coat on and look a little bit more professional today, but I was scrambling. I took yesterday, the afternoon, off to spend with my wife, and we had an amazing day. But 25 years of marriage, I think that's pretty awesome. And some of you may also be in that boat. I know a lot of people that are immigrating to Canada through Express Entry. If you're as old as I am, which is 47 years old, you are likely you don't have a chance of immigrating to Canada because your age is too old. You've lost all your points. Based on Canadian immigration, I'm a 0. So yesterday, because of that, some of my things had to be set aside. And so now I'm just frantically trying to get caught up. And to have some reasonable work hours so that I'm not working till all ends of the evening, which my wife has informed me is not healthy, apparently. And it's true. I've got my COVID-19, 19 pounds probably that I've put on since we've been locked in our homes and the restrictions are all in place. But yeah, I'm super grateful to have an amazing wife who lets me do all of this. Who loves me, who supports me in spite of all of my failings, all of my shortcomings, who has just been an unbelievable mother to our children, who are, I've got two in basically university age, two that are finishing up high school. Today was the last day of technical classes for them. But they've just been awesome. And I have never been more blessed in my life than now. So I just wanted to let everybody know about that because it's pretty cool. I'm pretty excited about it. We had planned to go as a part of this 25th year of marriage to Egypt and to Jordan and Israel. But like many of you, those kinds of trips that were once in a lifetime trips were put on hold. And so we're hoping that we can still do that. But I just wanted to share that with you guys before we jump into this heavy, meaty stuff that is just so, sometimes it can be so depressing, right? Because you wonder, okay, what's going to happen with Canada? When are they going to open things up? Personally, my feeling is that it's probably going to be for another couple months before things start to open, maybe even into September. But we are starting to get a handle on things. Now, some countries, because of opening too soon, they're starting second waves of the infection with the coronavirus. But we're doing a pretty good job here in Canada. And I'm hoping that that's going to help life to return back to some semblance of normal a lot sooner. All right. So now is the time, all of you amazing folks out there, now is the time where we're going to shift over and we're going to start posting a few of the questions. And so you can go ahead and start posting them now. Okay, Iram says, hey, Mark, your videos are very amazing. Well, I don't know about amazing. I do my best. Let's see here who else we have here. Starbucks Girl says congrats, which thank you so much. That means a lot. We got a bunch of, Silver Jubilee. Isn't that crazy? I remember people telling me they were at their 25th wedding anniversary and I was like, man, you are old. Kaushik also says happy 25th anniversary. Harpreet says congrats. And there's lots of congrats. And I really appreciate that, guys. That means a lot. 25 years, Nods. That is unbelievable. It's amazing that she's still with me. And just a ton. So thank you so much, guys, for all of your well wishes. Amna says you look like 35. Well, I guess that's a good thing. What don't I do? As a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, I try not to party. I don't smoke. I don't drink. I try to take care of myself, although my vice is food. I love to eat, and I definitely need to take care of that. But probably living a less harsh lifestyle has probably helped with the rejuvenation a little bit there. Amin from Periscope. We've got our Periscope representation. Awesome. Thanks for that. And Luca, yes, from Egypt. I'd love to meet you guys in Egypt. That would be so, so awesome. And there's just a ton here. So Iram says, convey your regards to your wife. May God bless you with all happiness and success in this life and hereafter. Amen. Amen to that, Iram. That is so, so kind. Okay, let's jump into the questions. We'll start with my Tommy here. You guys in your tags, man, your names are hilarious. Okay. Do you think the FSW pass mark of 67 will ever change? Has it ever changed in the past? I'm applying for EE in the far future and I'm afraid the score might change. Okay, this is a great question. So many of you don't understand. You don't even know that this is happening in the background. But when you are applying for Express Entry, there is an eligibility assessment that happens to determine if you meet the Federal Skilled Worker or the Canadian Experience class or the Federal Skilled Trade Program eligibility requirements. And for the Federal Skilled Worker, it's a 67-point threshold for these, what do we call them, selection criteria. And so I can tell you, my Tommy, I can tell you, and I'm going to push this down here a little bit so it's not totally blocking my face. I can tell you that many years ago when I first started my practice in the early 2000s, 2002, 2000, well, let's see. Right around there, 2002, 2003, 2004, during that time period, the pass mark I think was 75. I'm trying to remember. I think it was 75. It was really high. And then the government chose not to, and then they chose to drop it down to 67 points. And then everybody could qualify. Well, a lot of people could. And during that time, that's when the score, the backlogs of applications, because Express Entry didn't exist, remember, as long as you met the eligibility requirement, then you're good to go. And so people, everybody that's in the pool now would be able to eventually become a permanent resident in time. But there was such a massive backlog of applications that immigration realized they had to do something. In some countries, like China, for instance, excuse me, and even India in some cases, processing times could be up to 6 or 7 years. Can you imagine that? Years. And so they decided to follow the pattern actually of Australia and New Zealand and create an express entry process. So I can tell you, my Tommy, when you are looking to apply, we do not anticipate there being any changes with that threshold. It's just going to stay at 67 because it's the comprehensive ranking system, that ranking that we see in the pool, that's really reducing the number of applicants. All right. So there's the answer there. Okay, Dill says, do the job offer in the PNPs need to be LMIA, or just a formal job offer would work for foreign applicant and onshore candidate? Okay, so there's a big difference between foreign applicant and someone who's onshore. I'm trying to think if there's any exemption. Now understand, we've got a lot of provinces across the board, but realistically, every single employer who is bringing you through one of the provincial nominee programs is going to have some form of a job offer that is supported by a labor market impact assessment, or something in terms of not PNP, but the Atlantic Immigration Pilot Program. They also have to go through significant efforts to show there's no Canadian or permanent resident who can fill the position. So if you're looking at coming through through one of the PNP programs, there are very few. I'm trying to think if there's any that don't require, let me put it this way. I don't know of any PNP where all that's required is just a letter without some form of labor test in the background. So I think the answer for that is no, if you're outside of Canada. If you're inside of Canada, then yes, some individuals that are working on, say, open work permits through the postgrad work permit program or other things, or one of the other work permit programs that do not require an LMIA, they are able to often go through. There are varying rules in each province, but in many cases, there are transitions for people that are in Canada right now who are working for an employer on a valid work permit to transition from a foreign worker to permanent residence. We call that a flip, a temporary foreign worker flip. And so those do exist. Okay, good question. Okay, Yash says, okay, 1 of 1. Well, Yash, I'm not sure if we're going to get to all of these, my friend. Due to COVID-19, I'm planning to start my Canadian Fall 2020 education online outside Canada. I understand that this will not affect my postgrad. Initially, those are the reports that we're getting, that you will not be prejudiced because of that initial period of time outside of Canada towards your postgrad. So that's a yes. Okay. Kabir says, I don't have an address on landing. What happens if I don't have one? I also don't have any friends or relatives. Can I give my address after 3 months from landing once I have a place to stay? Please advise. Thank you. Kabir, this is a question. This is a very, very good question. And I don't actually have an answer for it. I've not had many people ask me this. Now, obviously, when I'm dealing with any of my clients, our office is always available to use as the address for landing. But understand, Kabir, if you're planning on coming to Canada, you better know where you're going to live. You better have a place to live. And the reason that it doesn't come up, at least for me very often, is because people need to come, land, and then this whole concept of soft landing is kind of a more recent phenomenon. And so when you're landing, especially now with all the COVID-19 restrictions and things like that, they want to know that you have a place to go, you have a place to live. And so, you're going to try to take whatever steps you can initially to determine where that can be mailed. Obviously, for anyone, even you, Kabir, if you need somewhere to mail, I am more than happy to act as an address for individuals who are looking to, who are coming to Canada and need to have a place to send their PR card, when they land. And so obviously these, with the travel restrictions and everything, we're not exactly certain how everything's going to play out, because right now you're still, if you do not have if your passport request didn't come in before March 18th, there's still that bar in being able to travel. So, but for people like you, Kabir, we do offer that service to clients, and for individuals such as you. Okay, Harsey. Hey, Mark, thanks for hearing us out. I was wondering if CRS 473 will get me through EE under the FSW before August. My score will then drop to 467. because he's having a birthday. Yes. Should I take a TEF to stay above 470? To start with, if you can take a TEF, take it. Every single one of you, if you have the ability to write a French language test and get extra points, take it. I don't care if you're at 480 points right now. Now, will 473 be enough initially? I don't think so on the first few draws. I think the first few draws, it's going to be over 480. But then once those individuals are kind of flushed out of the system, then it's going to start to drop back down. Because remember, the dynamic here is that the more education you have, okay, let's look at the baseline. To reach the level to pass 470 points, basically, you pretty much need to have at least a CLB 9, okay, on your language. So that's the 8 in listening and 7 in reading, writing, and speaking on the IELTS. Or on the Canadian Experience class, which doesn't really matter now, I should say in the CELPIP test, if you write that test overseas, then it's just 9 across the board, okay? So that's the starting point. You need at least 3 years of skilled work experience. You can't be much more than 30 years old. If you're 30, well, you're probably even then too old. And you need to have at least a master's degree. And so with all of those factors in place, you need to have those things in order to just get into that range. And if you don't, you're not going to have a chance. So then it comes down to people who maybe have a 10 in one of their abilities. Other people that are trying to get more points through PhDs, well, you know what happens. It takes time to get a PhD. And so even if you go through school, you get your bachelor's, you do your master's, you do your PhD, even those individuals with PhDs, they're starting to lose points on the age factor because they're hitting 30 years old. And then trying to show that you've got at least 3 years of skilled work experience is also really difficult. So in your situation, Harsi, 100% go take that French test if you can. Anything that you can do to bolster your score. But it's possible as things settle, as things go back to normal, 473 may be enough, right? Because you can only go so high and then things kind of cap out. All right, good question. Okay, Iram says, hey Mark, congratulations. Please convey my regards. Okay, yes, thanks. That's a duplicate one there. Thank you. Okay, Vishal says, I have a CWP letter and my wife has an open work permit. We both hold offer letters from the same IT consulting organization. Will CBSA officer allow us if business is running or we need to prove ourselves essential? Okay, this is a great question and the answer is essential. You have to show that what you're doing and the purpose of your entry does fall into that. Now, you haven't indicated where you live or where you are or where you're coming from. The rules associated with people coming from the US are different than people that are non-US, those orders in council. So generally speaking, in those situations, if you have, you absolutely have to show that the business is running. And immigration officers, border officers will bounce you back if there isn't a place, work for you when you come back. All right. Shiva says, congrats. Thank you, Shiva. I appreciate that. Okay, let's keep going here. Okay. Anand says, hi, I'm in Canada, got an ITA for CAC, draw 146. I will submit my PR application this month end. I might travel to India post my ITA submission. Will IRCC not process my application due to my travel to India? The moment you leave and you're no longer in Canada and you have an obligation to tell them that, then your application will stall out. So they will accept it. It will sit in the queue and it will, but they're not prioritizing express entry applications for people that are outside of Canada. And a little tip for all of you guys, you also have to understand that when they are stating that they're not going to process for people outside, if you are inside Canada, you've got your CEC, you've submitted your EAPR through the electronic application for permanent residence process. If you've got a dependent family member outside of Canada that's accompanying, your application is getting shelved as well. It's not going forward. So those of you who are wondering, why isn't my application going forward? I'm in Canada. What's the deal? Well, if you have a spouse outside or a dependent child or anyone that's a dependent on you that's included with your application and is outside Canada, you're going to be in tough shape. Tough luck. Okay? All right, let's continue on here. Okay. Okay, so this person says, I have a question. I stopped my study for 3 years and I worked this year. Can I get can I get this point? Okay, this one I'm going to skip past because I'm not quite sure what this person is asking. I was trying to make sense of it, but I'm not quite sure. Okay, let's see what Jod says here. Maximum processing time limit for nomination as mentioned by SIMP has expired. That's right. I got an ADR regarding proof of funds. I provided them well in advance. Should I contact the authorities? What's your advice? My problem is my EE will expire in July. Congratulations. Wish you a very happy anniversary. Okay, so Joe, this is an exact situation where it's very specific to your situation, and I can't give you an answer without understanding how everything fits in. Yes, there are issues. Yes, there are concerns. I've got tons of people that are caught in limbo here. But Joe, that's one that I'm not going to be able to answer just because of the very, very specific nature of your situation. Okay, so sorry about that one. Okay, Josh, this is part 2. Will I be eligible for Express Entry CRS points of study in Canada as I will not be physically present in Canada for at least... I do not know an answer to that one, Yash. There is a lot of indication, and my personal feeling is yes, that you will be eligible for those points for study in Canada. And I guess I'm trying to remember if they actually came out and stated it, but I have no reason to believe whatsoever that you will not be granted those points. So if you've completed it, even like a 2-year program or a bachelor's degree, those 15 or 30 points that are attributed for Canadian study experience, I personally, this is my personal opinion, and I can't remember if they formally stated it anywhere, but you should be eligible to receive full credit for that. Okay. All right. Darshan says, got an ITA today, laid off, but if I get terminated in July, do I need a new reference letters? I already took a letter in March. Also, how you mentioned laid off period in history. Okay. Laid off is just, you're no longer working. That's how I treat it. So that's how you do it in your history. You indicate that you are no longer working, and so you could put unemployed during this period, and then in the explanation of what you were doing, you could say laid off. That's a possibility. Laid off is kind of it's a terminology that implies you're going to be rehired. You know, and that's one of the challenges that we're experiencing right now, is because there's a lot of things up in the air. Companies just don't know what the future is going to look like. So they say, well, we're laying you off, which is a termination in a way. But there's also, there's some implications or some indication that there's a chance for you to be rehired versus just a formal, a termination without cause, essentially. All right. Okay, this one is from Cafe. It says, congratulations, Mark. Thank you. Okay, Aisha says, hey, due to COVID-19, how much time is it taking to process visit visa applications? Aisha, I just covered this, and I can tell you due to COVID-19, everything is suspended. So they're just not processing. They're not. Let me shift gears here. I'll go back to my web. I'll try to pull up this, and I think I showed you this, right? So you can see here, okay, you can see here, so the applicants can continue to apply for temporary resident visas via online applications only. Paper applications are not being accepted at this time due to restrictions on travel to Canada for nationals, by foreign nationals. Remember, this is the key, by foreign nationals. Only applicants who meet one of the exemption criteria and who are traveling for a non-discretionary, non-optional purpose will be processed. This includes both new applicants and those whose applications are currently pending. TRV application fees still apply. So what this means is, unless you can show that the purpose of your travel is non-discretionary, non-optional, then you are, unless you can prove that, it's just not being processed. All right. Okay. Good question. Okay. Thanks, Aisha. All right. Kefe says, been watching your channel for 3 years. That's amazing. That is so cool. Thanks, Kefe. Appreciate that. Clara gives me a congratulations. Thank you. Okay. This unknown person says, hi, Mr. Lawyer. Can I still come to Canada? I love it when unknown people like this post questions that are absolutely impossible to answer. But I'll give you a shout out for posting it. Not a clue, my friend. Book a consult. And I guess the best way, I usually try to do this every time I do these, because I've had a lot of criticism from the social media marketing world and people who've been trying to help me to get my message out. They're saying, you do not tell people how to contact you. They have no clue how to find you. And so you can see in the description of the video, there should be links. And one of the links that's there is to my website. And all you have to do is go here and click on the Start Here button, and then you can book a consult, and we action these suckers fast. So I do not sit on this. We move very quickly because we know how important it is for you to get the answers that you need. And so that, I want you just to give a shout out. That's where you'll go. Mr. Unknown here, as I go back here, that's where you go to book a consult, and then I can actually help you with that. All right, fun times, good stuff. Okay, okay, RC is laughing. That's great. I'm not sure what he's laughing at, but he's laughing at something. Okay, Clara says, for CEC, is there any requirement for the education? Can someone with no Canadian education apply PR under CEC? Well, yeah, it's possible. Remember, you with the Canadian experience class, if you have 1 year of skilled Canadian work experience, and your language is at the minimum level, then you can become eligible under the Canadian experience class. But the problem is, it's not being eligible under CEC. The problem is, Clara, that you will not get any points for education, and it's the comprehensive ranking system in the profile that you have to deal with. And that's where you're going to run into problems. All right? Okay. Let's see here. Okay, so Tanvi says, hi, our COPR expires in September and we plan to do a soft landing before that. Is 14-day quarantine mandatory even if we just show up at the Canadian border for our landing procedure and return back to the US? Right now, they're taking a pretty stiff approach to this. When it comes to the mandatory quarantining, we've heard a lot of just a lot of confusing, conflicting information on this. Okay, and so when it comes to completing your landing, at a port of entry, if you're coming from the US, just to do a kind of almost like a flagpole kind of thing, all I tell my clients when they're considering or trying to do this is that that they need to, that there's going to be a lot of uncertainty, and I don't have an answer for you. This is one of the challenges as an immigration lawyer I'm dealing with right now. People who ask questions just like Tanvi here about, can I go to the border and get this result if I'm coming from the US? Technically, the US is open for people to be able to travel, but when it comes to the quarantining requirements and this whole notion of whether or not you need to, if you're only here for a short period of time, there are exemptions. For example, truck drivers and things like that are moving logistically stuff back and forth. But Tanvi, I'll be honest, I don't have an answer for you. I don't know how they would treat that in those circumstances, and that's me being honest. All right. Okay, Kaushik says, my wife's open work permit is approved. I'm already here on a PSW, maybe post-grad work permit. I booked the travel 25th of June, and the IRCC rejected the pre-authorization request. Sent them another appeal adding my ITA and EAPR files and waiting for a response. What shall I do, Mark? Kushik, you need to book a consult with me. This is an area where there's just too many moving parts here for me to be able to advise you. And I really wish I could. When it comes to this, there are a number of levels that we have to look at very carefully. Where you're coming from, the basically what you have in place, what you're doing when you come to Canada. Do you have a job lined up? All these kinds of things. Okay. All right. Okay. Amna says, Mark, I want to know how can we withdraw a sponsorship application if it's still in process? Do we have to provide reasons? You don't need to provide reasons for why you want to withdraw it, but you do need to provide it in writing. So that process through web form, it needs to be in writing. And that's all I can say. That's all I can say for you. You can do it. It depends on the timing. It depends at what stage the application is at. Has the permanent resident visa already been issued? Is the person getting ready to travel? If that's the case, then guess what I do? I notify the Canada Border Service Agency and I say, look, this individual, I'm not supporting their sponsorship anymore because they haven't landed yet. They're not a permanent resident yet. And so if IRCC, you send in a written notification that you want to cancel the sponsorship, you can also try to call the call center and let them know and see if there's any specific instructions that they give you. But notifying IRCC through a web request takes time. But that's what you do. And then if the person is traveling and you're really concerned they're going to land before the sponsorship is withdrawn, then in those circumstances, and probably it's not going to happen right now, but you just don't know. In those circumstances, if they are trying to land, notifying the Canada Border Service Agency is the direction to go. And Amna, if you want to book a consult, we can talk about that in greater detail. I don't know if you have a representative right now. The challenge with spousal sponsorships, when you want to withdraw and you have a representative, that's a conflict of interest. And when you have legal representation, that representative has a duty to both of you. And so that's something that you have to take into consideration. So sometimes it's good to get a third party, like another external lawyer, to advise you. And I do that all the time for an independent legal advice for colleagues who have spouses that are now deciding to break up and not to pursue, or one of them doesn't want to pursue. Then they will often refer to me to give independent legal advice, because they're conflicted out. They can't give advice to the detriment of another client when it's in a dual representation situation. At least that's in the world of immigration lawyers. Okay, let's see here. Okay, this is an interesting question. Hi, I got my PR invitation. I'm assuming that's an invitation to apply an ITA. Is that a good idea to do a private background check for fast processing, or should I wait till they ask? Well, you need to provide your police certificates, and that's really the extent to which you can do a background check. But I don't know why you would want to do a private background check on yourself. You know what you've done. And so interesting question, but you have to get your police certificates in most cases. So request them and see if you have something on those police certificates. And then if you do and you need legal advice, I can help you to determine whether you're admissible to Canada or not criminally. So interesting question. Okay, so Mark has an open work permit under... Nice name, Mark. Fantastic name. I have an open work permit under my partner, who is under the study permit. We have pending PR under the Atlantic Immigration Pilot Program, awaiting a decision. Okay. Do I qualify for a bridging open work permit, as our permits will expire soon? Okay, if you're dependent and you have an acknowledgement of receipt on your permanent resident application, and you fit into one of the categories through the bridging open work permit, one of those programs, then it is possible to apply for a bridging open work permit. And if the principal applicant is applying, then the dependent can also get that accompanying open work permit. But remember, anyone who is applying for a bridge and they want their dependent spouse to also get one, or any open work permit, whether it's a post-grad work permit and then they want to get their spouse an open work permit, they must still demonstrate that they're working in a skilled occupation. So low skill doesn't cut it. Okay, or that they're actually, and make sure that they're actually employed. All right, good question, Mark. Okay, let's see here. Okay, Karam says, I sent in my Bachelor of Science BSEE degree from Pakistan in the mail, and my MSc from the UK electronically to West. They only sent me ECA for my master's. Is that good enough? Yeah. If you've received an ECA for just one, and the highest level is a master's, then you're okay. But remember, I actually will take the steps now. It's changed over time. Initially, I'd say don't bother putting anything in there that you don't want to score points for, but there's nothing preventing you from indicating your study that you've obtained in the study history, and then you're just indicating that you don't have an ECA. And that tells the Express Entry system that you're not claiming points, and then it won't require you to provide any other supporting documentation. So with your master's, that's not an issue with West, just having that. All right. Okay, this person says, can we get a visitor visa if the PR application is still pending? Not right now, you can't. And in many cases, you have to show that you have temporary intent and that you have ties to your home country, that if your temporary application is approved, that you will return. And yes, Canada does accept the concept of dual intent. In other words, that I have the intention of one day becoming a permanent resident, but right now I will abide by any temporary condition put on my temporary stay. And so there is the possibility of doing it, yes, but often visa offices, even in the best of times, like take coronavirus and remove it, even in the best of circumstances, they really struggle approving visitor visas when someone has a permanent resident application in the queue. All right. Okay, let's see here. Okay, Harsey says, one more. I got my reference letter. Whenever I switch jobs, should they be bearing post-ITA dates? Do I have to take them again from everywhere, or old ones will do? Everything's locked in. When you get your ITA and you're ready to submit your EAPR, it depends. If you're not working for those companies anymore and the letters work, then they don't really expire. Although I personally don't like to have letters that are too old, but in every case, it depends on the circumstances. So if it's work that you're no longer working for, an older letter is fine as long as it fully complies, and the contact information for those people you worked for, that they're still there. Okay. All right. Let's see. Okay, asking on behalf of a friend, what if my COPR expires? Will IRCC provide me extension? Yes, they will. You need to submit a notification to IRCC before it expires, before letting them know that you still intend to fully come to Canada. Now, if it's already expired, do the same thing. Submit an IRCC web form. Let me shift over here to my screen here, and let's pull it up. So the IRCC web form is right here. You can Google it, whatever you want. This IRCC web form is where you notify them that you are unable to travel and that you wish your permanent resident application to continue going forward, but for COVID, you'd be there. And you provide that explanation in here. You complete the information, and there's even a section at the bottom, remember, where you can upload your documents once you click next. And then at that stage, that's where I will upload a copy of my confirmation of permanent residence, just so they know that that you truly do have a visa in place and they can match it up properly. Okay, good question. Good question. Okay, we'll jump back here. Let's see who else we've got. Mark Subley says, hey, Mark, hello. Harsey says, 67 years sounds like me aging brutally. Yes, true. Okay, so Kensa says, Mark, when I and my husband are shareholders of a company and same time working in that company, does it put myself under self-employed category? That is a good question. And once again, we're based on the circumstances of your situation. In many cases, I treat when I'm the owner of the company and you said your shareholders, often I will classify that as self-employed if it's not specifically set up to be an employer relationship. In other words, you can be a shareholder in a company and you haven't indicated here whether you're a majority or or whether you're a part shareholder. You can own shares in the company and not have a controlling interest. And I think in my view, when you have a controlling interest, let's say you and your husband are 50-50, then I have a tendency to treat that as self-employed. But it really, like I said, comes down to the facts of your situation. Are you, is your business an IT company that has no other employees and you're the only employees? If that's the case, then I treat that as self-employed. If you have a company where you have just 1,000 employees and you only own 15% of the shares in that company and you're the CEO, then it's an employment situation and you're not the one that's signing off on the letter. So there's a lot of different factors there, but yeah, I did want to let you know. Let's see. This is hilarious. I have to show this one. Claire's Home. Seriously, are you trying to do the rural northern immigration pilot from Claire's Home? I'm a flight attendant, okay, and applied for Claire's Home rural northern immigration pilot. Food counter attendant. Will I still qualify? I'm a food and beverage server for the last 12 years. I cannot tell you. What I can tell you, and I'm working with an employer in Claire's Home right now, they only have 20 spots, and those spots are all reserved for people that are actually living in Claire's Home. So the likelihood of the rural and northern immigration pilot actually being used for someone to pull someone from outside of their community, just a bare bones, I'm submitting an interest, it's going to be unbelievably unlikely. It's usually because you know someone in the community, there's a prior relationship, because they want to know that if you go to Claire's Home, that you're actually going to stay. Now, I would recommend that you spell Claire's Home properly in your name. It'll definitely go a lot further. So, all right. But the reality is right now, Claire's Home, just like many of these rural and northern immigration pilots, are really focused on people that have a connection and a reason to stay in those communities. And we're seeing a crazy phenomenon right now. People with open work permits in Canada, post-grad work permits or whatever, are now starting to move to Claire's Home just in hopes that they could get one of these spots. And it's been a boon for the community, and it's quite interesting. So we'll see how that, see how all of that plays out. But there's really only 20 allocated for Claire's Home. Okay, Jatinder says, hey, Mark, I created my Express Entry profile on June 8th. My score is 445 under CEC, but I don't get any update from today's draw. There is not any update on my CIC account. Okay, so 445 under CEC, June 8th. I don't get any update. I don't have an answer for you, Jatinder. You know what? I'm not sure why that would be. I don't. I recommend you book a consult and we can look into it in detail and try to figure it out. But that's one of those specific questions that, I can answer the general stuff. I can answer very, very specifically general questions. But when it comes to something that's inherently within you, your application, there's, why you didn't get drawn, I'd have to look at it in detail to figure it out, right? Because if we go back and let's take this, and I really want to try to help people. I don't want people to just feel like, oh, Mark's just trying to push everyone to book a consult. That's not the case. You guys don't want me to spend 20 minutes of this short little thing going into detail with someone. And from a legal perspective, I don't want to be giving legal advice to someone specifically about their unique situation. I can give general information, but not legal advice. And so that has to go through a consult. So if we go over here and we go to the rounds of invitations and we look back, okay, so we can see June 10th, there was a draw PNP class. All right. So we go back here, we go back to the previous rounds of invitations. You indicated that you created your profile on June the 8th. So if we go back June 10th, do you see what I'm looking at here? So June 10th, this was a provincial nominee class only. So this was not a Canadian Experience class. And so I think the confusion is the last draw was for the Canadian Experience class was May 28th. So that's why you haven't been drawn. Okay. So there we go. We were able to solve it. And it didn't take too long, which is also great. Who says I don't work for you guys? Who says I'm not genuinely trying to give really good answers and not just fluff? All right. Okay. Let's see here. Okay. This is awesome. Sometimes I wonder if these are your real names. And hey, that's great. Johnson Timberlake. Fantastic. Maybe you're brothers with Justin and you're looking to come to Canada. I don't know. Or maybe just have the same last name, which is totally fine. Okay, any chances for SOW applicants who already passed eligibility, criminality, and security to be rejected? On what basis? The whole reason for an application to be rejected is usually on either eligibility, criminality, or security. Now, is there other ways? I guess if they found some misrepresentation that you had somehow lied in your application and they caught it at the back end, that could bounce it. You haven't mentioned medical assessment. Maybe there's something medically that could also throw things off. So there's a number of possibilities, Johnson. But yeah, the short answer is, yeah, there is a chance. Okay. Okay, let's see what we got here. We're going to ask, we're just about wrapped up here. We got one more minute and we're going to close this off. Okay, let's see what Shiva says here. Oh, actually, I'll go for Harpreet. So Harpreet, no, I don't think so. I don't think there's going to be an FSW in June. That's my response. Okay, Shiva says, just wondering if IRCC gives priority to those applicants gaining points from LMIA jobs over others. I've applied FSW inland. I can improve my score. So there's no, like, based on your question here, and I'm not going to read it all, but if you have an LMIA, you're going to get 50 points, right? That's the difference. So in terms of priority, if you have a job offer from, based on an employer through the International Mobility Program where it's not LMIA based, you're still getting 50 points for that. For people that don't have an LMIA, they're not getting any 50 points. So that LMIA is a critical component unless you have an employer specific work permit and you've worked for that company for at least a year, then you get those job offer points as well. And if you're in a 00 knock, then you can get up to 200 points. So there you go. Okay, so guys, I'm going to stop there for today. I know people have had a ton of questions and I didn't get through nearly as many as I'd hoped to, but that's just the nature of it. Unfortunately, and I apologize. I wish I could. Igor and I are going to go back this week and try to provide answers where we can, just entering them into the comments and trying to respond to it. It's not always as easy through YouTube, and Facebook's a little bit easier sometimes to provide answers, but we'll see what we can do to try to help. All right. And because I don't want anyone to go without, the help that they're trying to get. I really want this to be valuable. So I'm so grateful for all of you guys for tuning in. As always, every time I do this, I always give a shout out to my Canadian Immigration Institute. And you guys, I tell you this all the time, especially you Express Entry folks who spend hours and hours just wasting your precious time and then choosing to hire someone who maybe overseas in your country who really doesn't know any more about Express Entry than you. Go here. And one thing I'm actually going to do, which I realized that I probably should have done it in the past, there's an amazing portion of this guide that is beneficial for everyone, regardless of whether or not you qualify or not. And so what I'm going to do is Module 1 and Module 2, I think I'm going to flip this out and I'm going to make it free. I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm still working on the logistics of this, but Module 1 and Module 2 are all about learning the basics of Express Entry and then preparing to submit your actual Express Entry profile. And the reason that I'm looking at giving those away for free is because there are so many of you that come on that want to get your questions answered here, have a sneaking suspicion that you don't qualify for Express Entry but just don't know where to turn. And so I think I'm going to release Module 1 and 2, and then you can also see what these are about in detail and get a feel for how awesome these are. But Express Entry, all about Module 3 is all about completing your profile. 4 is about the EAPR, 5 is about documents, and there is a ton in there, guys. Sample documents for you, everything navigating that whole complex issue. And then even more important in many respects than everything in Module 2, 3, 4, and 5 is the member resource section, which I've talked about a lot. People who come to me and say, oh, Mark, I got all this information off the internet. It wasn't really helpful. There wasn't really anything that you helped me with. It's because they never went to the resource section. I'm not going to waste everybody's time describing every possible problem that a person could have with a reference letter in the general guide. And it's not a guide, it's a course. But in that lesson, instead, I dive into the deep, deep parts of Express Entry in here. And I've even broken them down into categories so you can search them. So those of you who are watching for the first time here, and even you who've been wondering, should I purchase it? Should I purchase it? Just purchase the bloody thing. It is totally worth it. I put my heart and soul into it. And if you, for whatever reason, purchase it and you say, this sucks, this wasn't helpful, which I know you're not going to do. But if you did, all you have to do is request and I will give you your money back. I'll return it. There's a complete 100% 30-day money back guarantee. Okay. So all you need to do as you're going through this, go to the course. Okay. Pay attention, go to the course, click on purchase now. And this is going to take you to the one-time purchase, and you're going to type in that code that I tell you every video, EEDIY50, and apply. And it will allow you to have access for $248.50, this whole 40, almost 50 individual lessons, and then this massive resource of other support to help you navigate Express Entry. Every client that hires us to assist them, every single one of them gets free access to this. And so as we're going forward here, guys, remember this is here. It's for you. It's a complete money back guarantee. And I stand behind it. And I created it myself. So hundreds of hours. So check it out. All right. I think that just about wraps it up. I'm going to end with an awesome view of one of my favorite places to go, Waterton National Park, when the wind was howling. So I'll sign off. This is Mark Holthe, Canadian immigration lawyer, ex-immigration officer, and former high school teacher, wishing you guys all the best as you're navigating this crazy world of COVID-19. All right, take care, guys.